You can live longer, but not just by counting years. You can live deeper, with more clarity, more peace, more meaning, because real longevity isn't measured by the clock. It's measured by the of your presence. And the truth is, most people don't die late. They die early, inside, long before the body gives out. They trade vitality for survival, joy for stress, curiosity for routine, and in doing so, they shrink their life to maintenance mode, not knowing that every small habit, every silent choice is either adding to their life or taking from it. Quality. This episode isn't about hacks. It's not about fear. It's about remembering that how you breathe, how you move, how you eat, rest, forgive, and focus. It all matters, more than we've been taught. Longevity doesn't come from obsession. It comes from awareness, from honoring the body without punishing it, from protecting your peace like it's sacred, from remembering that a long life is not the goal, a meaningful one is. So if you want to add 10 years to your life, not just in time, but in presence, listen closely. These habits aren't magic, but when practiced daily, they become a quiet revolution. They restore the body, strengthen the spirit, and reconnect you with what you've forgotten in the rush, that your life is not something to race through, it's something to nourish. Wake up with purpose, not panic. The way you begin your day is not a throwaway moment. It's the opening scene of the entire story that will follow. And if you begin it in chaos, distraction, or dread, you're already handing over control before you've even taken your first conscious breath. And most people do exactly that. They jolt awake to an alarm that feels like a siren. They reach for their phone before they've even sat up. Their mind is immediately hijacked by notifications, by other people's demands, by noise. No wonder the day feels like a race they never chose to run. But imagine something different. Imagine waking up with intention, with clarity, with presence. No rush, no panic. Just a quiet moment to reconnect with yourself before the world tries to pull you away. This is not luxury. It's not a productivity trend. It's a form of self-respect, because how you start determines how you carry yourself, mentally, emotionally, and physically, for the rest of the day. The Stoics believed in this deeply. Marcus Aurelius used to begin his mornings with reflection. He reminded himself that the day would bring difficulty, and that his job wasn't to control the world, but to govern his own mind. This wasn't pessimism, it was preparation. It was clarity, and from that clarity he found calm. So what does a purposeful morning look like? It doesn't have to be dramatic. It could be as simple as sitting still for 2 minutes and taking 3 deep breaths. It could be stretching in silence, writing down one clear intention for how you want to feel today, not just what you want to accomplish. Maybe it's reminding yourself, before the demands start pouring in, that your value is not measured by how fast you respond, how much you produce, or how many people you please. This small window of morning is a gate. On one side is reactivity, and on the other is choice. If you skip this moment, you step into your day already behind. But if you pause just briefly and ground yourself, you take back control. You tell your nervous system, "We're safe." You tell your mind, "I will decide what matters today." Over time, this morning ritual, no matter how small, begins to change you. You stop starting your day with panic and start beginning it with power. You move slower, but more intentionally. You stop reacting to life and begin responding to it. And that shift, though invisible, begins to add years, not just to your lifespan, but to your peace span. to the quality of your life. So tomorrow morning, try this. Before you touch your phone, before you speak to anyone, return to yourself. Ask, what kind of energy do I want to carry today? What kind of person am I choosing to be, starting now? Because that choice, made in stillness, echoes through everything that follows. Breathe like your life depends on it, because it does. Breathing is the most basic thing we do, and yet it's the most overlooked tool we have for healing, clarity, and longevity. Most people go through their day without ever thinking about their breath. It's shallow, rushed, tense, and in that unconscious rhythm, the body stays stuck in survival mode, tense jaw, tight shoulders, racing mind. But here's the truth that modern science and ancient wisdom agree on. The way you breathe shapes the way you live. It affects how long you live, how deeply you experience life, and how resilient you are to stress and aging. From a Stoic perspective, breathing isn't just a biological necessity, it's a form of mastery. The Stoics practiced control over their internal state. They didn't try to rule the world around them. They focused on the one thing they truly could govern, themselves. And breath, at its core, is the bridge between the conscious and unconscious. It's where physiology meets psychology. You can't control every thought or emotion that arises, but you can control your breath. And through that control, you influence everything else. When you breathe slowly and deeply, you signal safety to your body. You activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the one responsible for healing, digesting, and restoring balance. You lower cortisol levels. You sharpen your focus. You reduce inflammation. You give your body a chance to repair. And in a world that constantly keeps you in go mode, that shift is not just healing, it's essential. Think about how often we hold our breath without realizing it, during stress, while scrolling bad news. When we receive a difficult message, the breath shortens, tightens, it mirrors our tension. And most of us live like that for years, trapped in a state of subtle stress that wears the body down. The immune system weakens, sleep quality drops, blood pressure rises. The damage is slow but constant. Now imagine taking even just 5 minutes a day to change that. To close your eyes, inhale deeply through your nose, hold it, and exhale slowly. To breathe as if you were trying to calm a child, with gentleness, with patience. That simple practice, repeated consistently, adds up. It becomes your anchor. It lowers the storm inside you, no matter what's happening outside you. Athletes, monks, special forces, they all train breath. Not because it's trendy, but because it works. It regulates emotion. It extends endurance. It builds focus. And yet, you don't need to be a Navy SEAL or a Zen master to use this tool. You just need to notice when the stress hits, breathe. When the mind spins, breathe. When you feel overwhelmed, return to the breath. Not to escape, but to recenter. Breath is presence. Breath is control. Breath is life. And when you bring your full awareness to it, you stop being a prisoner of your impulses and start becoming the master of your inner state. You age slower, think clearer, live longer. Not because of some miracle drug, but because you remembered what your body was built to do, reset through rhythm. So the next time you feel off, don't reach for a screen, a snack, or a distraction. Start with the one thing you always have, your breath. Make it deep, make it slow, make it intentional, and in doing so, you'll begin to reverse years of nervous system exhaustion, one breath at a time. Move daily, not to burn calories, but to honor your body. We've been conditioned to see movement as punishment, as something you have to do because you ate something bad or because you want to fix how you look. This mindset turns exercise into a transaction, one driven by guilt, shame, and pressure. But movement was never meant to be about burning calories. It was meant to be a celebration, a ritual of vitality, a sacred way of honoring the body you live in, the life flowing through you, the simple miracle of being able to move. Your body is not just a vehicle, it's your home. It carries you through every experience, every emotion, every joy and hardship. And when you treat it with reverence, not obsession, not abuse, but respect, it responds. Movement doesn't just sculpt muscles, it rewires your brain. It strengthens your immune system. It lifts your mood. It reduces anxiety. It tells your entire nervous system, we are alive and we are safe. Daily movement isn't about perfection. It's not about hitting some arbitrary goal or chasing a number on a screen. It's about returning to yourself, reconnecting the body and mind. Even 10 minutes of intentional movement a day, a walk, a stretch, a flow, can shift your state. It creates momentum, clarity, and presence. You start to think better, sleep better, feel better, not because you forced yourself, but because you listened to what your body needs. The Stoics may not have had modern gyms, but they understood deeply the connection between physical discipline and inner clarity. Epictetus, who lived his entire life with a disability, reminded his students that the body is a tool. And tools, if not used, decay. To neglect your physical self is not humility, it's waste. The Stoics believed in treating the body with moderation, strength, and discipline, not vanity, not for show, but as a way of building resilience. Movement is also a form of emotional processing. When you carry stress, the body holds it. Your jaw tightens, your shoulders curl, your breath becomes shallow, and if you never move, that tension hardens. It turns into chronic pain, fatigue, or mental fog. But when you move, not to fight your body, but to release what it's holding, something shifts. You free what words can't express. You let go, without even needing to understand why. There's also power in choosing movement as an act of rebellion, not against your body, but against a culture that tells you rest is laziness, that productivity is everything, that only extremes matter. 10 mindful minutes a day may seem insignificant, but it's not. It's a declaration, a message to yourself. I care enough to show up, even today, especially today. So ask yourself, what kind of relationship do I want with my body? One of punishment or one of partnership? Because this body, flawed, aging, imperfect, is carrying you through your one and only life. You don't need to beat it into shape. You need to listen to it, move with it, and remind it every day that you're still here, still trying, still alive. Not because you want to burn calories, but because movement is a gift. And when done with intention, it doesn't just add years to your life, it adds life to your years. Go to sleep before the world goes silent. There's a moment each night, quiet, still, sacred, when the world begins to slow down. The lights dim, the noise fades. Even the most restless city exhales. But most people miss that moment. They stay awake long after the body has begged for rest. Eyes locked on screens, minds scrolling through tomorrow's worries. Bodies physically exhausted, but mentally overstimulated. And in doing so, they rob themselves of the very thing their longevity depends on: deep, quality sleep. We often talk about productivity, energy, and focus Like they're skills we can force into place with effort. But without sleep, all effort is dulled. Without rest, no amount of motivation can sustain you. Sleep is not a weakness. It's not a delay. It's not something to sacrifice so you can do more. It's biological repair. It's emotional processing. It's mental reset. And every night you treat sleep as optional, you quietly accelerate aging, physically and mentally. Sleep is where your immune system regenerates, where your brain files the emotional weight of your day, where your heart gets a break, your nervous system resets, your hormones recalibrate, and when you delay it, when you trade it for just one more episode, one more scroll, one more task, you're choosing stimulation over restoration. Over time, that choice compounds, and the body remembers. The Stoics didn't speak about melatonin or circadian rhythms, but they understood something deeper, the importance of rhythm and restraint. They didn't advocate indulgence in the pleasures of the night. They believed in living in harmony with nature, and nature doesn't binge-watch. It follows cycles. Sunsets are cues. Darkness is an invitation, not an inconvenience. And if we listened, we'd remember something ancient, that the night was made for rest, not escape. But more than biology, sleep is also spiritual. It's the only time each day you let go. You surrender your guard. You allow yourself to stop doing, and in that surrender, something profound happens. You reconnect with your humanness, with the part of you that doesn't need to strive, doesn't need to prove, just needs to be. So go to sleep before the world goes silent. Not because it's a rule, but because it's a gift. Create a ritual. Dim the lights. Silence the noise. Send the signal. It's time to return. Let your room become a sanctuary, not a second office. Let your mind cool down, not ramp up. Let your body release, not tense. And yes, it will feel strange at first. To slow down when everyone else is still rushing. To close your eyes when the world is still online. But in that choice, you reclaim something powerful. Your energy, your focus, your longevity. So tonight, when the world begins to fade, ask yourself, what am I really gaining by staying awake, and what am I losing? Then listen to your body, trust it, and let it rest, because the strongest, sharpest, most resilient version of you. They don't rise with exhaustion. They rise with rest. Eat what grows, not what's manufactured. Every bite you take is a message to your body, a message of healing or of harm, a signal that says, I care about your future, or I'm still choosing convenience over vitality. Food isn't just fuel, it's information. It tells your cells how to function, your gut how to process, your brain how to think, and your mood how to stabilize. And in a world overflowing with processed products, bright packaging and addictive formulas, the most revolutionary act of self-respect is this. Return to what grows. Nature is precise. It doesn't manufacture in factories. It doesn't hide ingredients in labels you can't pronounce. It grows, it ripens, it decays, and in that cycle, it delivers what the human body was designed to recognize. Real nourishment. Fruits, vegetables, seeds, grains, herbs. Things that once lived under the sun, drew life from the soil, and carry the memory of the earth itself. These aren't just healthy, they're alive. When you eat foods that grow, you're not just avoiding disease, you're feeding resilience. Whole foods reduce inflammation, balance blood sugar, protect your heart, and extend lifespan. But beyond the physical, they offer something subtler: clarity. Clean fuel makes a clean mind. You feel sharper, more focused, less sluggish. The fog lifts, not because you added some superfood to your smoothie, but because you removed the noise. The Stoics wouldn't have obsessed over macros or supplements, but they practiced temperance, the virtue of restraint and intentionality. They believed in not indulging to excess, in eating what is necessary, what is good, what supports a strong and stable life. Seneca once wrote, "We should treat our bodies not as our own, but as something entrusted to us." And when you eat with that mindset, not to impress, but to honor, food becomes sacred again. The modern diet, however, is designed for addiction. It's engineered to hijack your senses, sugar, salt, fat, hitting your brain like a drug. And when you eat these foods consistently, they don't just affect your weight. They affect your discipline, your patience, your ability to listen to your body. The more processed your food, the more processed your thoughts become. It's not just about calories, it's about clarity. Changing this doesn't require perfection. It starts with awareness, with asking questions like, where did this come from? Did it grow, or was it built? Will it nourish me, or just numb me? Then make one shift. Replace the box with the basket. Choose color. Choose texture. Choose food that dies, because food that never dies cannot give life. And remember, food is not morality. This isn't about guilt. It's about alignment, about making choices today that your future self will thank you for, about seeing every meal not as a test, but as an opportunity to build the kind of life that feels strong, clear, and deeply alive. So the next time you open your fridge or walk down a grocery aisle, pause, look past the shiny packages, listen to your body, then ask yourself, am I feeding my fear or my future? Silence is medicine. Take daily doses. Noise has become the default setting of modern life. We wake up to alarms, scroll through voices, drive through chaos, work through chatter, and fall asleep with the TV humming in the background. And in between all of that, we never really hear ourselves. We're overstimulated, over-informed, and constantly reacting. But beneath all that noise, your nervous system is begging for something it rarely gets: silence. Silence isn't emptiness, it's nourishment. It's not the absence of sound, it's the presence of space. And in that space, your body heals, your mind clears, and your soul exhales. Just a few intentional minutes a day without noise, no phone, no music, no words, can shift your entire system. It activates the parasympathetic response, lowers stress hormones, and slows your biological aging, not with supplements, not with hacks, just with quiet. Think about it. Your nervous system wasn't designed for constant input. It was built for rhythm, activity followed by recovery. But if you never unplug, never pause, never step out of the stream of noise, then your body stays stuck in low-grade emergency mode. You might not feel it all at once, but the cost is real: anxiety, fatigue, poor focus, emotional reactivity. You become a version of yourself that is always on, but never truly present. This is why the Stoics prized solitude, not to isolate, but to reconnect. They would retreat into stillness, not as an escape, but as a return to clarity, a return to self. Seneca spoke of withdrawing from the crowd so that you might hear your own thoughts again. Because in silence, what is false falls away, and what is true begins to rise. But in today's world, silence feels awkward, unproductive, even threatening. The moment we sit still, the mind starts to race. The discomfort creeps in. That's why most people keep the noise going, not because they like it, but because it helps them avoid themselves. But that avoidance is what's slowly wearing you down, because you can't heal what you won't hear, and you can't hear anything when your life is filled with constant noise. So start small. Create tiny pockets of quiet each day. It might be 1 minute of deep breathing before you answer a message, a 5-minute walk without earbuds, sitting with your coffee in the morning, eyes open, no scrolling. These moments might feel insignificant, but they're not. They're invitations to reset, to recharge, to remember who you are outside the performance. And if you stick with it, something shifts. The silence no longer feels empty. It feels like home, like a place inside you that doesn't need fixing, proving, or explaining. Just being, just breathing, just listening. Silence is not a luxury, it's medicine. And in a world that constantly asks more of you, it is your responsibility to give yourself what's most essential: space. Because the most powerful insights, the most lasting peace, and the most meaningful answers often don't come through noise. They come through stillness. Let go. Don't let yesterday kill today. We've all been hurt. We've all made mistakes. And we all carry things we were never meant to hold this long. Regrets, grudges, guilt, shame. Some of us replay old arguments like broken records. Others wear past failures like armor. We think that by holding on we're protecting ourselves, that if we remember the pain clearly enough, it won't happen again. But all we're really doing is reliving the same wound over and over, while the present moment passes by, unlived. Letting go isn't weakness. It's not forgetting. It's not excusing. It's strength. It's freedom. It's the act of saying, this moment right now deserves all of me, not just the pieces that aren't stuck in the past. Because the truth is, yesterday already took what it took. The only question left is whether you'll let it take today too. When you hold on to resentment, your body doesn't know it's just a memory. It feels like a current threat. Your nervous system reacts. Your stress hormones spike. Your focus scatters. Your heart rate changes. You age faster. And not just biologically, but spiritually, emotionally. You become heavy, defensive, closed, and all because of something you can't change and don't need to carry. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's not even about what happened. It's about you. It's about your life. Forgiveness is emotional detox, a clearing of mental clutter, a breaking of chains you didn't realize were binding your energy. And it's one of the most powerful forms of self-discipline there is, because it requires you to choose peace over pride, freedom over fury. The Stoics knew this intimately. They didn't waste energy wishing things were different. They practiced amor fati, the love of fate, not because everything was good, but because it was. To fight the past is to fight reality, and the longer you fight, the more life you miss. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't let your reflection on the whole of your life crush you." He understood, peace isn't found in control, it's found in surrender. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop bleeding. It means you give yourself permission to start again, without dragging every old version of yourself into the room. It's waking up and saying, I've carried this long enough. And in that release, you don't become someone else. You become more of yourself. So if something from yesterday still haunts you, ask yourself, is this pain still useful? Or is it just familiar? What would it look like to put it down just for today? Not because you're weak, but because you've got things to build, joy to feel, peace to protect. You don't owe the past any more of your time. What you owe is your full presence to this moment, because healing isn't erasing the past, it's refusing to let it dictate your future. Laugh more, especially when life feels heavy. Laughter is medicine, not the kind you measure in milligrams or buy from a pharmacy, but the kind that reaches your nervous system faster than any drug. It softens tension, loosens the grip of fear, quiets the mind, and reminds you, even for a moment, that you're still alive. And yet, in the pursuit of seriousness, of growth, of productivity, many people forget how to laugh. They confuse depth with heaviness, maturity with solemnity, and they carry life like it's a burden, not a gift. But life isn't meant to be carried like a punishment. It's meant to be felt fully. And laughter is a way of saying, I refuse to let the weight crush my spirit. It's a way of reclaiming joy, even when the circumstances haven't changed. Because here's what most people don't realize. Laughter doesn't always come after the healing. Sometimes it is the healing. Scientifically, it's no mystery. Laughter lowers cortisol levels, boosts immunity, improves cardiovascular health, and releases endorphins that lift the mood and clear the mind. It strengthens your lungs, your heart, your relationships. It even reduces physical pain. It literally rewires your biology toward longevity. All from something so simple, so human, that we forget how powerful it is. And yet, laughter requires something most of us resist: presence. You can't laugh deeply while dwelling in the past or obsessing about the future. Laughter pulls you into the moment, into your body, into connection. It disrupts the seriousness that traps you. It reminds you that even in the middle of the storm, there is still light. The Stoics were often seen as stern, but not joyless. Seneca, in his letters, speaks of cultivating a calm and even cheerful spirit, regardless of circumstances. True Stoicism isn't about suppressing joy. It's about choosing it with awareness. It's about seeing clearly, seeing the absurdity, the unpredictability, the fragility of life, and laughing anyway. Not to escape, but to embrace it. Laughter, then, becomes resistance. In a world that profits from your stress, your urgency, your exhaustion, choosing joy is a quiet rebellion, a way of saying, I will not become numb. I will not let this world steal my light. It's a return to the self, the part of you that still remembers play, connection, levity. So laugh. Not just when things are easy, but especially when they're not. Laugh with friends. Laugh at your mistakes. Laugh at the absurdity of how serious we take everything. Let laughter live in your body again. Let it shake loose the fear. Let it remind you that you're still here, still capable of joy, even in difficulty. And if you haven't laughed in a while, that's okay. Start small. Watch something silly. Tell a ridiculous story. Look in the mirror and give yourself permission to soften, to enjoy, to breathe. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is smile. Not because everything is okay, but because you've decided to rise anyway. Protect your energy. Like it's your lifespan, because it is. Energy isn't just a feeling, it's your life currency. Every thought, every conversation, every obligation costs you something, and what drains you daily, the small interruptions, the unnecessary stress, the people who constantly take but never pour back, all of it adds up. Not just in mental exhaustion, but in cellular wear, in burnout, in aging. Protecting your energy isn't just about feeling better. It's about staying alive longer, with more vitality, more clarity, and more control. Yet most people treat their energy as if it's infinite. They say yes to things they don't mean. They absorb other people's chaos. They scroll through hours of content that doesn't uplift, doesn't inform, It just distracts. And they wonder why they feel depleted, resentful, unmotivated. But your energy is a sacred resource, and every time you give it to something that doesn't align, you're quietly stealing from your future self. Stoic philosophy taught restraint, not as a restriction, but as liberation. Epictetus urged his students to be vigilant about what they allowed into their minds and lives, because what you allow in shapes how you think, and how you think shapes how you live. If you let everyone pull on your attention, your opinions, your time, you stop being the author of your life. You become reactive, scattered, unsure. But when you begin to guard your energy, that's when you reclaim your strength. This doesn't mean isolation. It means discernment. It means learning to say no with confidence and without apology. It means choosing stillness over drama, depth over noise, truth over comfort. You don't owe your time to everyone who asks for it. You don't have to explain every boundary. Sometimes silence is the most powerful boundary there is. Think of your energy like a flame, bright, warm, life-giving, but not unlimited. If you let every wind blow through it unchecked, it weakens. Eventually, it flickers. But if you tend to it carefully, guard it from chaos, feed it with purpose, it burns longer and brighter. Not just for you, but for the people who actually deserve your light. Start with small acts. Mute the notifications. Limit the doom scrolling. Leave the conversation that always drains you. Create digital and emotional boundaries. Reclaim your mornings before the world touches you. Say no to guilt-driven obligations. Learn to walk away without defending your decision. These aren't selfish actions. They are survival strategies in a world that profits off your exhaustion. And perhaps most importantly, stop trying to fix everyone. Some people don't want help. They want an audience. Some problems aren't yours to carry. And every time you rescue someone who refuses to grow, you sink with them. That's not compassion. That's self-neglect. Protecting your energy means choosing to be present for what matters, your peace, your purpose, your growth. It means giving your best to the right places and letting the rest go, because you cannot show up for life or anyone else if you're constantly running on empty. So ask yourself, where is my energy leaking? Who or what gets more from me than they give? Then start to seal those leaks, one clear decision at a time, not from anger, from clarity. Because every time you protect your energy, you protect your life, not just in minutes, but in meaning. Stay curious. Let your mind age, slower than your body. There's something profoundly youthful about curiosity, not in the sense of immaturity, but in the sense of openness, a mind that hasn't closed its doors just because the years have passed, a spirit that still asks questions, that still wonders, that still explores, because the moment you stop being curious, you stop expanding. You shrink into routine, into predictability, into sameness. And slowly your mind begins to age in ways the body hasn't even caught up to yet. But here's the truth. Your brain isn't fixed. It's plastic, alive, responsive. The more you feed it, the sharper it becomes. The more you challenge it, the more it grows. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, doesn't disappear with age. It's kept alive by curiosity, by the willingness to learn something new, to think in a different way, to question your own patterns. Curiosity isn't just about reading books or watching documentaries. It's a way of being. It's approaching life with the mindset of a student, not a know-it-all. It's the humility to say, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's more here. Maybe I don't have all the answers, and that's okay. That posture, that inner orientation, keeps your mind elastic, your spirit light, and your perspective fresh. The Stoics were not just wise, they were endlessly curious. They studied nature, logic, ethics, human behavior. They asked hard questions. They examined their assumptions. They didn't hide behind certainty. They challenged their own thinking daily. For them, philosophy wasn't about collecting quotes. It was about living thoughtfully. Curiosity was the engine that drove that inner examination. And in today's world, where information is everywhere but wisdom is rare, curiosity is more essential than ever. The ability to discern truth from noise, to dig deeper, to challenge surface-level thinking. That's what keeps your mind sharp. That's what protects you from the slow decline of mental complacency. Curiosity also reconnects you with wonder, with the parts of life you stopped noticing because you thought you already knew. The way light moves through a tree, the story behind a stranger's eyes, the deeper meaning in a conversation you've had 100 times. Curiosity revives those moments. It returns color to the things you began to see in black and white. So how do you stay curious? Ask more questions. Read things that challenge your views. Spend time with people who think differently than you. Step into discomfort, not as something to endure, but something to explore. When life gets dull, don't blame the world. Look at your mind. Ask, when did I stop wondering? When did I start assuming? And let yourself play again. Curiosity is a kind of play, with ideas, with questions, with perspectives. It's how you stay mentally young, even as your body ages. It's how you avoid turning into someone who's simply repeating the past, and instead become someone who is constantly renewing the present. So don't just try to extend your lifespan, extend your mind span. Live in such a way that your thinking stays flexible, your heart stays open, and your soul keeps evolving, not by clinging to what you know, but by leaning into what you don't. Because a curious mind doesn't grow old, it grows wider, and that kind of growth, invisible, internal, expansive, is what keeps life vibrant until the very end. Live with meaning, not just maintenance. There's a difference between being alive and feeling alive, between simply existing, checking boxes, following routines, meeting deadlines, and actually living a life infused with purpose. Many people don't realize this gap until it's too late. They look back and see years spent in motion, but not in meaning, days full of tasks, but empty of direction, and they wonder, how did I get here without ever really arriving? Maintenance is easy. It's survival. It's doing what's expected. Waking up, going to work, keeping the machine running. But meaning, that takes reflection, intention. It requires you to ask questions that don't have quick answers. Questions like, why am I doing this? Who am I becoming? Is this the life I would choose if I knew time was limited? And that's the paradox. Time is limited, but we live as if it's not. Living with meaning doesn't require a grand mission. It doesn't mean you need to start a company, write a book, or change the world. It means you wake up with a reason to show up, a reason to care, a reason to grow, to give, to move forward, even when it's hard. And that reason might be as simple as loving your family better, showing up for your community, becoming a little more honest with yourself. The Stoics saw meaning not as something to chase, but something to cultivate. For them, it was virtue, living in alignment with reason, nature, and self-respect. It was acting with integrity, speaking with clarity, doing what's right even when no one's watching. That to them was a meaningful life. Not fame, not wealth, not endless pleasure, but purposeful effort day by day. Without meaning, time becomes heavy. You feel it dragging. You wake up tired, not from lack of sleep, but from lack of why. You fill your calendar, but not your soul. And even rest doesn't feel restful, because there's nothing worth recovering for. That's what happens when you drift. You don't fall apart in one day. You just stop feeling anything that matters. But when you live with meaning, everything changes. You move with more focus. You speak with more intention. You say no to things that drain you, and yes to things that build you. You stop waiting for life to start after the next achievement. You realize this is it. And you begin to pour your energy into what actually matters. Living longer doesn't mean much if you're just surviving longer. What you really want is aliveness, to feel engaged, connected, purposeful. That doesn't come from comfort. It comes from contribution, from giving yourself to something beyond your own ego, from aligning your daily actions with the values that sit deeper than your goals. So ask yourself, what makes my life meaningful? Today, not someday. And if you can't answer that clearly, don't panic. Start there. Start asking. Start listening. Start stripping away what doesn't belong. The truth will rise. Not all at once, but slowly, in quiet clarity. And once it does, your days will stop feeling so heavy. Your choices will gain weight. Your life will no longer be something you simply maintain. It will be something you create. Because in the end, it's not how long you live that will define your legacy. It's how deeply you lived while you were here. Longevity isn't just about time. It's about texture, depth, meaning. You can live 90 years and still feel like you never really lived. Or you can live with such clarity and intention that a single year feels eternal. That's what this episode was about. Not how to simply last longer, but how to live better. Not how to extend life in the physical sense alone, but how to expand it in the emotional, mental, and spiritual sense. Because the small habits we covered, they're not just tips, they're reminders. That your body is sacred, that your energy is precious, that your presence is a gift. And when you honor these truths daily, in your breath, your choices, your focus, you begin to build a life that doesn't just move forward, but awakens. Every day, you're offered a decision: continue by default or live by design. Numb yourself through routine or infuse your time with meaning. Chase more or choose less, but deeper. You don't need to transform everything overnight. You just need to begin with one breath, one quiet moment, one deliberate choice to protect your peace, your focus, your values. Because when you live this way, with curiosity, with rest, with stillness, with care, you don't just add years to your life. You add life to your years. And that is the rarest kind of success.